Hey, what's up guys? This is Anthony from Anthony's Customs, and for this review, we are looking at the Marvel Legends Spider-Man Retro Carded Series Shocker. This is one of my favorite toys as a kid, and, well, the original one. This one wasn't because it just came out, but Shocker's always been one of my favorite Spider-Man villains, despite his almost useless nature. I'm joking, but what a misnomer. For those of you out there who aren't familiar with the character, I'm sure there's a few of you. Seeing that his name is Shocker, I want you to guess what his ability is. It's not shocking people. It's shooting shockwaves, which is kind of makes sense, but also they probably could have come up with a better name, especially since there's already electric people out there, and it's like, well, they won't get it confused. Maybe they will. Let's call him something different. Call him Shockwave or something like that. Anyway, I like Shocker a whole bunch despite the naming, and this figure is actually surprisingly good in a lot of ways. It's an all-new mold, which I like a whole bunch, and that it's a new mold and that they did a good job with it. But there are a few things that really irk me. You probably already guessed a few of them. But let's go ahead and get it off the stand and take a closer look. This guy stands just shy of 16.5 centimeters, which makes him pretty close to a little shy of 6.5 inches. So he's a little bit short, honestly, and that's a little bit of a bummer. I wish he was bigger. That's not... Isn't Shocker supposed to be taller than that? Can somebody let me know? I haven't looked up his height because I didn't think I was going to need to, but he seems short, so we'll have to look into that. But aside from that, this is a pretty good sculpt. But aside from that, we have to do a question of the day. I'm going to do a twofer. Get ready. 1, do you like his quilt pattern not being painted, or do you think it needs to be painted? I know a lot of people don't like paint on figures because it should look natural and everything like that, except they don't match the source material without having paint. Because in order to draw a quilt pattern for Shocker, they have to use black lines, and they do most of the time, almost all of the time, and so this doesn't look like the source material, so for me, it needs the black lines. Second question of the day. Wavy chips or plain old flat ones? What do you think? Alright, let's go ahead and get into the aesthetic on this guy. It is a new sculpt. I'm very pleased with that. 1, because new sculpts are always good in a general sense, and 2, a good new sculpt is really good. I like a lot the placement. His shoulders are a little bit farther back than we normally see. He does have a little bit of thickness front to back. That's nice. He does have the right overall shape to his body. His shoulders are a little bit bigger. I do think they could probably go up just a touch, but there's no need for it. They still look pretty darn good. The overall proportioning is very nice. His hands fall where they're supposed to enough. He's got some thicker, longer upper legs, shorter, smaller lower legs. This figure does everything it's supposed to do. He doesn't have a giant thigh gap, though I would like to bring it in a little bit. I'll still do a Photoshop for you guys. I know you like them. But it does look really good overall from a sculpting standpoint. They did a good job with the quilt pattern. Fine with that. They did a good job with the gauntlets. Everything looks really good, except as far as sculpt, except for the way they did the belt. I don't know why they did that. Well, I do know why they did this. It was cheaper to do it this way and easier to not have to paint this. But this is a separate piece of plastic that's held together by such a tiny little piece right here, and it pegs in on both sides of that V into his torso. But these sides want to droop down all the time, and it makes it look really goofy. And then also, the way they cut this articulation, his waist is at an angle. So this is up from here. It's going this way. So that also makes the belt and crotch area look a little bit weird. He's got a shorter this part and a longer this part. That's what no. So it does throw off the look a little bit, but if you can kind of get that belt to stay where you want it to, it's not a huge deal. So sculpt-wise, I'm very pleased with it. I like the head sculpt. I like all of it. Very, very nice. Could be tweaked, of course, and I'll do that because you guys like it, but sculpt is perfectly fine. If I was just rating this sculpt, I'd go 9.9 out of 10. Okay, so let's talk about the paint on here. Well, the brownish color, perfectly acceptable. I know he does have that color mostly. The toy this is supposed to be based on, though, was definitely more in the burgundy realm. That's my favorite look for him. I'm wondering, third question of the day, do you like the brown for Shocker, or do you like the burgundy? For me, it's the burgundy. I think it looks nicer, but brown is perfectly okay. And it's just not painted that well. It's okay, But the line work, not the black lines that are missing, but the line work for the reddish brown color on here is just not very clean. It definitely could look a whole lot nicer, and a repaint would definitely bring it to life. But it's not terrible, so that's okay. Obviously, it's missing the black line work. I don't think that's okay. The best version of him so far had it. I'm not even counting those Bucky Cap ones. I'm counting the old one. Check out that review up there. It had paintwork on there, and even just a wash would look fine. But even the original toy this is based on had it painted on, and that figure had more paint than this one, and it was like a $5 figure. And no, it's not a fair comparison, but still, it is. You know, it definitely needs some more paint on here, but it does look good overall. I'm going to knock it for not having the lines painted, because I think they should be. So I'm going to go down to 7 out of 10 for the aesthetic. I really, really like the sculpt, but it's not painted. I can't. For the $26, $25 price point, I think these were $26 a piece. It needs paint. I love that it's a matte finish. That helps a whole lot. I didn't mention that yet. I do love that, but it needs the paint. It needs clean paint where there's paint, and it needs paint where there's supposed to be paint. Definitely needs it. But otherwise, whoever sculpted this, good job. Okay, let's talk about the accessories. We have the 2 fist hands that come in the package. Then we have the open hands that are full-on forearms. That makes sense because of the gauntlets. Very nicely sculpted. They look really good. I like that a whole bunch. And then we got the freaking bubble effects. Every once in a while in the comics, he has like a glow to his hands. It doesn't really look like bubbles ever. If anything, I'd say it more would look like electric energy. But we got bubbles. Not blue, not red. Shockwaves, bubbles, orange bubbles. I'm not okay with that. I want shockwaves, especially if they're going after the toy look from the original toy. Those were red blasties that came out of his fists like they do in the comics. They're usually blue or white in the comics from my experience, but still, orange bubbles, I don't want these. What am I going to do with some orange bubbles? Is it better than nothing? Maybe, but that's not a good criteria. It should be what it's supposed to be. Freaking bubbles, take these, give them to Speedball. Speedball needed some accessories. Shocker doesn't need bubbles. So accessory-wise, super generous, 5 out of 10. I really like the hand sculpts. Okay, let's talk about the articulation. Head leans back. We're on the old style disc hinge with a ball peg. Leans forward, leans back. Full rotation, no lollipop. Love it. No real attitude on this guy. But it's very well seated on the figure. I like that. Shoulders, better than horizontal. Full rotation. Bicep swivel. Double jointed elbow. Works better than Spider-Man's elbow. Want to just point that out there. If you do it right, you get a little bit better than 90. A little bit better than Spider-Man's, not by a lot, but you do. You get your wrist swivel there. Ab crunch on this guy. They're definitely working on the radiuses, so I'm going to take credit for that because I keep complaining, and we finally got a new mold with a better ab crunch. He still looks a little pregnant, but not as much. And look at that, no giant gap in there, just for comparison purposes. See the difference? I've been saying for years you don't need that gap. Hey, look. Turns out you don't. So that's okay. He's very much less pregnant. That's good. It helps that they made him a little bit thicker. That helps to alleviate that. Definitely does have a little bit of that extra bulge on the back and the front. They could definitely put that in a little bit and it would be better, but it's better than we normally see, so that's okay. Waist twist is okay. Legs go better than horizontal, which is better, just about the same as the new Spider-Man figure. Going out to the side, they're just about the same as the Spider-Man figure, so that's okay. No drop down hips though. They're a little loose on mine. I don't know, did you guys have loose hips on yours? Let me know. Thigh swivel on mine feels super stuck on both of them, and the kind of stuck where they wiggle, which means if I turn it, it's going to tear that peg right off. So the best thing you can do, and it's still risky, but the best thing you can do, well, there's two options. One, if you feel that resistance to where you go to twist it and it kind of springs back, it has like a soft feel to it, do not just crank it. Sometimes it'll work, but sometimes you'll just shear that peg in the hip going down there right off. Now, these guys are normally harder plastic, but these feel like PVC to me, and that's why I'm afraid it's going to shear off. If it's a hard plastic piece, then you're okay, you can just crank on it, and this PVC part will just end up freeing up. But best thing you can do for this, there's two options. I don't know which one's technically better. I haven't tried them both that many times. heat it up and then cool it, and heat it up and cool it a few different times. And what that does is it makes the parts just expand and contract, and hopefully that process makes them pop free. Whatever's sticking them will have separated at some point, and then they'll free up. Good luck if that works. That's best. There's no risk there. The other one, there is some risk, and that is heating this bottom part up so that you don't heat the peg up inside. So just heat down here as much as you can with like a hair dryer, or you can do water, but don't do boiling water. It'll mess up some paints and a lot of plastics. So just heat this up with a hair dryer and just pull on it. Don't pull on it to rip it off, but if you just pull on it, it might be enough to get that peg to pop, whatever's stuck, to pop free, because this is already expanded some and you're just trying to break it loose. That's a little bit more effective, but also riskier than the cooling and heating. So you can try either of those if you have the same problem. Okay, double jointed knees. They work very nicely. I like that. You do get a boot swivel underneath the metal piece right there. Ankles go all the way back and all the way forward, and you get a good ankle rocker. So articulation is not bad on this guy at all. I will give it an... Where is it limited? It's not really limited too much in any ways that are unreasonable. It's not special. It doesn't have butterfly joints. I don't personally care about that because you don't often get that much extra range out of him anyway. So he can do his shocker pose. I'm going to say it's an 8 out of 10. There's nothing really wrong with his articulation. It all works pretty well. Yeah, I didn't mention any aesthetic. His elbows and knees being the harder plastic, they're a different yellow and they're shiny, so that doesn't look great. Paint would help a lot on these figures. Okay, final verdict on this guy. Easily the best figure of the wave so far. This being a number 2, not as in it's a turd, but it's the second best, because it did solve one of the problems, at least on this mold, but it is still on a faulty mold. This figure has almost the same articulation as this one, and this one's supposed to be the best ever and has extra POA, and this doesn't. So, you know, you can compare. But best figure of the wave in my estimation so far. I'm going to give it a Marvel Legends rating of... okay, so these reviews are getting longer and longer because of this damn price hike. None of them are worth the price so far, okay? I have to still review these and give you a rating that is relative. So I'm going to assume that you've already accepted that they cost too much, and I'm just going to rate them as I always have. They are overpriced by far. There's a 20 to 30, sometimes 35 or whatever it is, % hike in price without a better figure being produced. So they're not worth it. But I can't just keep saying every figure is a piece of crap, don't buy it, because you obviously are interested in buying Marvel Legends. So we're going to just assume you accept the price is no good, but I need to review them anyway. So I'm going to give this guy a rating for Marvel Legends of 9 out of 10. I'd go 9.5 if he was painted properly, but the sculpt is really nice, articulation works. They did a pretty good job with it. So yeah, 9 out of 10. It would have been 9.5 easy if the paint was there. But it's a good release. I would recommend it if you're okay with the pricing. There it is, guys. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please do give it a thumbs up. If you didn't, give it a thumbs down. And if you haven't subscribed, you might want to. I have new videos almost every single day, and thousands already on the channel. So make sure you come back for all of that. And in the meantime, keep collecting.